Hey beautiful people, what is up? Good morning. I'm here because I'm going to do a quick get ready with me. I have a ton of work meetings today, so I thought that I would do a quick look, kind of like featuring what I wear when I need to do something that's a little bit more professional, featuring the Esum Artistry palette. This is the number 2. Now, I would love to do a full review on this at some point, but this is a palette that I've been reaching for most of my work events, most of my work travel, and I just think that it's an awesome, like, perfect palette for those that don't want too much shimmer. Now, if you don't know, Esum Cosmetics is a artist or makeup artist brand that doesn't, stop regular people like me and you from buying it, but it is specifically targeted towards makeup artists. And I feel like the shadows here have a different level of shine and texture and impact than what we see when we use indie shadows, which is why I wanted to feature this, because it is very different and some of us don't always want the high impact indie makeup. Now, if this is your first time joining me, let me just quickly say, welcome, I'm Jamila. I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup and skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the fam. And this I would consider in the luxury category. Now, like I said, this is part of the Artistry series. It's the number 2 palette, and this retails for $120. She's not cheap. It is a 15 pan eyeshadow palette, but it's really, really small. One of the great things about this palette is how compact it is. Like, this is so easy and perfect to travel with. And because it is designed for makeup artists, the packaging is actually designed to be able to fit in like the palm of the hand of a makeup artist as they're applying makeup. So it doesn't have the typical flap that we see with eyeshadow palettes. So this actually is transparent. It slides completely off. I do have the other palette from the series, the colorful one. So this is what it looks like with the cover on. This is what it looks like with it off. So you can see it is transparent. You can see inside, but there is some tint to it. But it does make it really easy to identify what palette you're working with, and then it just slides right off, and you can actually slide the cover onto the back of the palette if you don't want to just have it laying around, and it does stay in place. So this is what we're going to be working with. Now, a couple other quick product details. Of the 15 sort of shadows that you see here, it does have a mix of finishes from satin to chromatic to multi-dimensional metallic tones, and these shadows were made in Italy. I don't see a shelf life on the palette itself. It might have been on the box and I threw the box away, so apologies there. Now, I will pop up some swatches so you guys can see what it looks like on my skin tone. I'm a medium deep complexion with a yellow golden undertone, and I swatch in just like my bare arm with my phone in direct sunlight. So for this quick look, I'm going to be using my Forget Me Not palette from Blend Bunny Cosmetics. This is another one that I think was created with makeup artists in mind. It's meant to be a face and eye palette, but we are just going to be going into the matte shadows today, because obviously that is a all shimmer palette and I need some mattes to ground this work look. Okay, let me bring you all in closer. Come closer. So I'm gonna start by going into the shade Anticipation from the Blend Bunny palette as my transition shade. And just to say really quickly, when it comes to getting ready for work, I like to keep my looks honestly pretty simple because I don't want my eyeshadow to be distracting. When I'm at work or when I have a really important meeting to attend, I am just trying to get my job done. Do the people damn job. So with that, I don't like to have bold shadows. So I like to focus on the softer eyeshadow palettes, meaning muted tones, neutrals, and also pretty subtle shimmers. I don't want my eyes to be too sparkly because then it's just going to take away from what I'm there to do and the importance of what I'm seeing, which that is not what we're going for. Next up, I'm going to go into Picture Perfect to start adding some of that depth. I'm going to start by putting that into the crease, really concentrating on the outer part of the eye. And making sure not to carry that too far up. And then taking that same brush, I'm gonna go one over into Unforgettable. That is a super rich brown, and I'm going to use that as my outer V color. And I'm gonna take my time to build here because, again, because this is going to be a work look, I'm not going for smoky. I'm just going for depth, but not a smoky look. Okay, so now that we've kind of laid the foundation, we'll end up coming back to those shadows at the end to really blend everything together, but we're gonna go into the shimmers. Now, I do want to quickly point out the way in which the shimmer palette is arranged, because you can probably tell that there are different textures in each row. So the first row is definitely more of the satin row. I believe that the second row is the metallic row, and then the third row is that sort of, I think they called it chromatic shimmers. But I do find that the highest impact comes from the second row, whereas the first row is really that just sort of satin look. So if you really want zero to no pigment, I definitely say you go in with the first row, and not pigment, I mean impact, zero to little impact. Going in with the first row is your best bet. Now, I personally have really enjoyed these two rows as well as this one, because I feel like these are just sort of the traditional neutral shimmers that you would use or need to use when creating a work or professional look. So I'm going to start by grounding the shimmers with this one right here. Now, there are no names, I believe, for this, at least none that's on the palette itself, but and I don't think I saw any in the box. And I find that with a lot of makeup artist brands, they don't exactly name their shimmer shadows. It just is. Or if they do, they're numbered, like this is number 1. So I'm just lightly putting that into the outer parts of the eye here. And you can see how very subtle that shimmer is, which is exactly what I'm going for when it comes to work looks. Next, I'm going to flip the brush over and I'm going to go into the sort of coppery shade. This is the really, really metallic row, so I find that the shadows here have a lot more impact and just pop a little bit more, but not too much where it's overwhelming. And I am specifically using a brush because this is going to be a work look and I don't want it to be overpowering. I can go in with my finger to just get a tad more punch to it, but again, we're trying to go to work. And then the last shimmer that I'm going to add to this look is going one across from that copper shade, taking this shimmer right here and putting that into the inner part of the eye, blending it into that copper shadow. This candle is about to burn out, but I spend all of my time filling my head with the doubts that I've never seen this through. No, I'll never be quite like you. Sometimes I take Okay, so we have a beautiful gradient going, and as you can see when I lean back, it's not overpowering, overwhelming. I'm gonna go ahead and clean things up, make sure everything is nice and blended together because we do have some harsh lines going on. And then I'll come back, show you guys the final full put together look, which is honestly just my typical work professional look, especially when I have to do really important meetings or presentations. And then I'll give you guys some rough thoughts on having used this palette a couple of times in case you're interested in picking this up. Okay, so I'm back and this is the final look. Let me just quickly tell you guys what I'm wearing on the rest of my face because this is an expensive face, okay? So For my primer, I did go in with the Good Molecules Moisturizer Primer Combo thing, which honestly is just like a moisturizer. I just wasn't feeling like putting on primer today. For the foundation, I'm using the Traceless Matte Foundation from Tom Ford. I did pick this up at the CCO for 50% off. This is actually a really nice one. I like stick foundations because they're just super easy to apply and blend out. And I didn't do too much. Like, this is a very, very light layer, which is what I've been doing with my foundations recently, is like using so much less than I used to. Then on top of that, I went in with the concealer for that foundation. This is the Traceless Matte Concealer. This came out, I would say, like 4 to 7 months ago. This retails for $60, but I did find it at my CCO for $30. So that's what I'm wearing as concealer. For my bronzer and my blush and my highlight, I went in with my Tiger palette from Hourglass. I figured since we're going bougie with all the other products, why not pull this baby out? So I used this as a bronzer. I did have to top it off with my Bare Minerals bronzer to give it a little extra zhuzh, because let's be real, this is barely a bronzer. And then honestly, for the blush, I mixed these three together to get kind of a custom blush shade, because I feel like this is kind of like the mixture of the colors that are on my eyes. I use this as my highlight. And for my setting powder, what did I use? Oh, I used my Dior Backstage as my setting powder, but then I did go in with this Chantecaille powder as a finishing powder on top of everything. And finally, for the lips, I am wearing my Toasty liner from Morphe, but on top of that, I went in with a satin matte lipstick from Tom Ford. This is 1111. So this is the lipstick that I'm wearing. So pretty Tom Ford heavy face today. It's giving boss girl vibes, which is what we're going for, right? So just really quickly, for the waterline, I went in with the dark matte that I used in the inner parts of, the outer parts of the eye here. And then I took the satin gold shade here for the inner parts of the eye. And that was pretty much it. I did use the highlight from the Hourglass palette as my brow bone highlight and my inner corner highlight. But this is the final look, guys, and I just wanted to quickly wrap things up with giving you guys my thoughts on this Esum palette. Now, this is a palette that I've used several times, and quite frankly, it's the one that I think about and reach for whenever I have work functions and I want to create a work-appropriate look, meaning I don't want anything that's too bold or too colorful or too shifty or too sparkly, just because it's not appropriate for me. This I also find to be quite perfect for travel. It's super thin, super lightweight. The fact that you can fold things up really easily, it is a clear, transparent top, means that, hey Phyllis, that's not Phyllis. I don't know, but a lot of birds have been visiting me lately. Is that a sign? Let me know if that's a sign. But I've been getting a lot of different birds coming to see me. And I don't have a bird feeder, so I don't know what they're coming for, but all are welcome. Anyways, what was I saying? I think I was saying that this is really easy to travel with. I like the transparent top. Everything fits in really nice, really compactly. And the fact that you get 15 shades in such a compact format, I absolutely love. Because when you think about other palettes like the Natasha Denona midi palettes, they're pretty large and not super easy to travel with. But this is really, really easy to travel with. I like the different textures too that the palette comes with. So you get the metallic, the chromatic, or I believe they call it, and the satin. So you have all of the different textures that you get to play around with, and you can keep things as subtle or as soft as you want them to. And I think as it relates to just sort of the color story of neutrals, you have the most important ones, right? You have a cool tone neutral, you have a more coppery, warm reddish, a coppery reddish neutral leaning row here. You have the typical gold, you have silver, and then you even have like a bit of a plum purple row here. So I think that you really have everything that you need. It's arranged in columns, making it really easy to decide or go up and down the row. You don't have to do 3 shades like I did. You can honestly just pick one, plop it on the lids, blend it out really nicely. I do think that you get really nice shine, even though it's not crazy sparkle. It works well with a brush, which I know a lot of us don't like to dig in with our fingers. So if you really just wanted to go in with the brush, I think it picks up and applies well with the brush. And if you really wanted more impact, you could go in with your fingers to apply this as well. Now, let's talk about the price. This is $120. Do I think that it's worth $120? Honestly, I don't think so. I find it very hard to say anything is worth $120, to be quite frank, because I think that there is a huge markup when it comes to eyeshadow palettes just generally. What I will say too is that this palette doesn't have any special packaging, which is why I think the price is really confusing. Yes, it does have that really unique slip out design thing, but there's no mirror. There's no heavy metal or anything that I think contributes to the weight of the packaging. Now, I'm beginning to realize that this, I think, is... Oh, can I slide this off? So one thing I just realized as I was plopping this back in is that they are actually shade names. They're on the back of the shades here. So I think I didn't realize that this piece here can actually slide out even further to pull out the shadows, and if you needed to plop them out. Again, I think this is very much a makeup artist designed palette, because they're going to be the ones that are using this, refilling it. But for me, I'm not going to be doing all of that. In terms of it being a makeup artist designed palette, I think it makes perfect sense. I think that the design clearly shows that the performance is superb. I have no complaints about the quality or the performance. I just do think that it is a bit overpriced for me. But I am very happy that I picked this up. Now, I did get a 20% off coupon, or there was a 20% off sale, and Esum has had some sales. So you don't have to pay $120. You can get this for, I'd say, around the $80 mark, at least less than $100, which I think does make it more worth it in my opinion. Do I recommend that you pick this up? If you really want it. Because like I said, I really do like the quality in the formula, and it is the palette that I have been reaching for the most when it comes to my work travel, because I that's just kind of what I look for. And it is one that I think I will travel to even outside of work for like personal trips. I think that the compactness and the amount of shades that you get in there make it really perfect for travel. Because even looking at these two together, which is the colorful one and the neutral one, this is so easy to throw in a makeup bag compared to the larger palettes that I think brands bring out. Okay, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed seeing a quick work appropriate get ready with me using the Esum Artistry palette. If you did, leave a comment down below letting me know if you've picked up this palette, if you are interested in picking it up, if you'd like to know more about the Esum brand, because I can do some more digging into it, because I've been really interested in their products. And next up for me, I want to purchase their blush palette, because I love a blush palette. I don't like single blushes because I've realized that I prefer to mix and match my own blushes to get my blush shade of choice. And it's just easier to travel with a palette of blushes versus a bunch of single blushes. And the blush palette actually comes in the same packaging as well. So perfect, compact, easy for travel. Again, all of this was designed for makeup artists who are obviously moving from one event to the next. So I'm interested in picking up the blush palette. There is a contour / bronzer palette as well, but I don't think that makes sense for most people to pick up, because usually you have one shade and that's it. So I like my bronzers singly, but my blushes in a palette form. So that's what I'm going to pick up next. I believe that retails for $80. And if I get it on sale, I can get it for around $60. There is also a matte palette in this format as well. So it has 15 shades that are supposed to be complementary to the neutral shimmery palette, as well as probably the colorful one as well. So it's just a matte palette of like neutral shades with warm, cool tones and some plum neutrals. So that's also on my list to get. And that one does retail for $80. So you'll see that the shimmer palettes are in the $120 price range. The matte palettes are $80. Again, you can get a sale, usually 20 to 25% off, and that would bring you down to about $60. So that's on my wish list as well. And I'm hoping for that for Black Friday. They do have a pretty significant sale, so I can pick it up there. All right, so that's it from me. Again, if you like today's video, go ahead and leave your comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out if you haven't already done so. Like the video, all of the engagement helps. And thank you guys again so much for watching. I appreciate you so much more than you know. Be safe, have fun out there, and I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye.